My name is Patrick Clifton. Quick history about me. My background is in the indie music sector. I then worked at Amazon for 10 years, helped to launch and grow their music streaming service. And in my role there, commissioned a number of music documentary films that appeared on Amazon Music and Prime Video. I then went to work in the vinyl space, and I'm now a consultant. I do strategy and general management consultancy for music and tech clients. I'd like to welcome my panel, and I wonder if you all wouldn't mind introducing yourselves briefly before we kick off with some questions. And I'm going to start with Michele, please.
Hey, hello everybody. My name is Michele Ziegler. I'm a German living in Paris, and I work for Forum des Images. I'm director of NewImages. So I'm the non-tech person. I'm the more film person. I prefer to say that so I don't look stupid on the panel. We accompany creators, producers, and cultural venues to integrate immersive content in their work. We do that all year round with workshops and residencies all around the globe. And once per year, we have the biggest market that is 100% dedicated to immersive arts, where we bring everybody together to work on the project development. So we have a market for development for those who search for investors or co-producers, and a market for distribution, but also workshops on for cultural venues to integrate immersive. When I say immersive, it can be everything between virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, but also mapping, hybrid spaces, or binaural sound.
Excellent, thank you. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Patrick. My name's Tom Stingemore. I am a long-time major label, major publishing sync executive. I spent 7 years at Universal Records doing sync licensing for all of their labels. Then I went to BMG and I spent 7 years doing sync licensing for all of their artists and songwriters. Then most recently I went to a company called Hipgnosis for 2.5 years to build out their global creative commercial sync licensing operation. I left Hipgnosis halfway through last year, and I have since launched Alloy Sync Distro, which is an industry-wide data framework in order to modernize the sync licensing industry.
Excellent, thank you. Over to you, Tommy.
Hey everybody, I'm Tommy D. I'm a music producer, songwriter, artist and DJ. I founded TokenTraxx back in 2020. We build Web3 technology. That's blockchain, crypto, AI, DeFi, NFTs, metaverse, all the new emerging technologies. We partner with other platforms or artists or labels, publishing companies, sports, gaming, TV, film, and we build out the Web3 infrastructure for those platforms, working with a number of different amazing projects at the moment. Incredible project around music emotion, where we're tokenizing music emotion, which is really cool. A number of IP around film, which I think is going to be very relevant to the conversation we're having today, but also music, and also sports IP. All of these things can be tokenized or put on chain, including the sort of fan clubs or the communities or the whatever you want to call it, the loyalty programs. All of these things can be put on chain. If you were here for my talk earlier, you will know what I'm talking about. But thanks very much for being here.
Excellent, thank you. So we're going to start the discussion kind of more on the creative and artistic side, and then kind of move more into the infrastructure and some of the challenges around licensing, etc., as we go through the conversation. My first question is, how are new creative media combining music and film, both in physical spaces and also virtual spaces? And I'm looking to Michele to help me out with that one.
Well, thank you. I As already said in your question, the creative media now allow us to combine music and film in more innovative ways in order to create immersive experiences for the audiences. So either in physical spaces, as in museums, in art installations, or in virtual spaces, in virtual reality or mixed reality. And there's where it's at the moment very, very exciting in mixed reality pieces where the audience basically has their headset, so they experience the artwork in a mixed reality, so seeing their surroundings, but also so they hear the sound from the headset, but then we also integrate spatial audio compositions in the room, which then enhance the experience. And it's very, the sound is very, very important to create the emotion, because for us as a immersive industry, the most impact, what is different, because people ask, okay, why do I do this in VR, right? I can watch a movie, but especially the sound experience allows us to create a whole new set of emotions in the audience, and that's what is so exciting. And now at the moment, the new creative media allow us to do both in the virtual world, but where there's a barrier because people need a headset. So that's something we are working on with the governments and the European governments with a lot of funding. But on the other hand, now that the technology allows us to create spaces in cultural venues with where people don't need the headset, it's becoming very, very exciting.
Excellent, thank you. Tommy, I wonder if you have any perspective on this, wearing your multiple creative hats?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm reminded of is sub-bass, right? Sub-bass. You know, if you think about the way when we used to go, for those that are old enough, when we used to go clubbing, and then the sort of advent of sub-bass and how sub-bass then changed the musical art form. I think sub-bass is a great example of how technologies work with creativity to change the creativity and vice versa. And now sub-bass, of course, in nightclubs and festivals and venues, of course, is commonplace. But it was actually not very commonplace sort of, 20, 30 years ago. So I'm using that as an example because I think what we have to do is kind of think, instead of just sort of going parallel, we always think about how can we recreate what's already there. And I think one of the most important things that we need to think about when we're building in this space and doing things in this space is what can we do that's new and innovative that people haven't experienced before. And I think what Michele was talking about there is some great prime examples. How can we use this technology in ways that you've not done before? I've been working with Dolby around metaverse sound and looking at what we can do within that realm, which is new and interesting to people, that will give people new experiences as opposed to just feeling like they're already walking through a forest. Well, we know what walking through a forest feels like. We've all done it. But how about if we were walking through a forest that you've never heard before? And I think those kind of thinking is what I love about this space, is what it's this kind of innovation that I think makes it really powerful.
Excellent. Thank you. Linked to that theme a little bit. So when I worked in the streaming business, we started to offer immersive audio formats to our subscribers. So Amazon enabled Sony 360 and Dolby Atmos, linked to the launch of a piece of hardware called the Echo Studio. And then Apple, of course, followed or matched that innovation in their streaming service, linked to a couple of pieces of hardware that they launched, and are apparently sort of financially incentivizing record labels to deliver their audio in immersive formats. And then when we think about the live space as well, I know companies like L Acoustics, who are one of the biggest suppliers of audio for festivals and concert spaces have developed their own software called ELISA, which is designed to bring immersive audio into the venue space. And certainly when I go to kind of immersive art exhibitions in London, there's I'm sensing that technology is also being used. What does the panel think about the development of that and its kind of mainstreaming, if for want of a better word? Michele, maybe I could start with you.
Well, I think I already started to mention that for me this is very exciting, and especially in when it comes to physical spaces. And for us, I think that from a venue perspective, to create the immersive sound environment will allow us to create experiences where the audiences will come back more easily, and so we actually can somehow use it to create an experience where the the visitors will come back because they're being moved in another way. And I feel like that other industries have done that already. In the hotel industry, for example, that hotel chains, maybe you don't know, but you have noticed maybe that they create specific sounds or scents in order to create an emotional memory of the stay of the visitor. And I think that this is something that with sound can also play with.
Yeah, that's very interesting actually, and that goes back to Tommy, what you were saying about emotion. Do you think immersive audio can somehow conjure up more emotion? I'll tell you a funny anecdote. There's a producer called Nigel Godrich, who's quite famous, who obviously did all Radiohead and Travis and a million other bands. And he did one of the first remastering of a classic repertoire. I think he did one of Pink Floyd's album in Dolby Atmos, probably over 10 years ago. And I actually met him when we were trying to launch this thing, and he was quite scathing about it being a terrible gimmick and rubbish. And I also, worked with a few bands who just were like, we don't want the sound around us. We just want it in front of us and at maximum power. Like, did you think it can bring more emotion to the music?
I think it's a different format, and I think it's a mistake to kind of think that you're judging one format against another. We are used to listening to Riders of the Storm or Dark Side of the Moon in stereo. So when you have an immersive experience, it's actually kind of confusing. And of course you're going to have people like Nigel and stuff, who I love and count as a good friend, going to say that, because that's not what, when we're in the studio, we're making stereo music for listening in stereo. I think the interesting thing about immersive is we're only scratching the surface as to where this can go. And I think this goes back to the point I was making, which is we're actually trying to create new experiences for people and things that haven't been done before. And so as a consequence, I think it's much easier to to condemn something than think, actually, this is different. I was in Dolby and they played me an amazing mix of Lee Scratch Perry's stuff. And of course with dub reggae, you can imagine, you got echoes over there, over here, over there, behind you and stuff. It was amazing. It was really, really cool. It's not stereo. It's different. And I think approach it as a different medium altogether instead of trying to sort of compare it to what's there already.
Brilliant. Excellent.
100% agree.
Excellent. Thank you. So on to my next question. Licensing has always been, I think most people who've been involved in film and music would agree, a drag on creativity. It's a cumbersome process and also very expensive. Does the panel think that innovation will ever transform this highly manual aspect of the business? And this one goes to Tom.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm actually really inspired by the work that Michele is doing, and I think a lot, like Tommy says, it is a different thing. Like, it's not for your car or your headphones, perhaps, but it is for these spaces. It depends how good your car is, mate. Yeah. I think yes, I do. Yes, I do think that, and I think like one thing that all of the exciting technology that's going on and being discussed around these rooms today, like. I think the music industry has a responsibility to make it easier for people like Michele to actually engage with their music. Now, I know a lot of the work that Michelle's doing is soundscapes and audio and music and stuff, but yes, it has been historically very, very difficult for people to license commercial music. Actually, to the extent that, sync licensing, as it stands, if anyone in the world finds one of our songs, and by us I mean labels and publishers, anyone in the world finds one of our songs and wants to use it once, we as an industry make them embark on a 3 to 4 week administrative clearance process, which involves generating genuinely 200 to 300 emails. Wow. I don't think that is particularly scalable, particularly if anyone saw Tommy D's presentation this morning, like the future is here. But yes, I do believe that innovation will solve that.
And could you tell us a little bit more about how or when? I know you're working in this space, so I'd love to hear about the business you're working on.
So what I've realised, so having spent 18 odd years at major labels and major publishers, what I've realised, it's actually everyone. So I'm not claiming to have identified a new problem. People have been talking about this for at least a decade, that sync licensing needs to be modernized. What I realized when I stepped out of working for one music company is that we've all been trying to fix the problem on our own, in isolation, while at the same time competing with one another. And that hasn't worked, and it doesn't work. So there's actually, if you'll allow me just to tell a very quick anecdote.
Please do.
My friend was running the advertising for a very big car brand 6, 7, 8 years ago. And we went to the pub one evening and he said, Tom, did you know, I've just had a meeting with the car brand. Did you know that every car brand in the world is bankrupting themselves trying to build a 6-inch touchscreen for their dashboard? Every car company in the world, all trying to do it independently on their own in isolation while at the same time competing with it. They were spending 98% of their research and development budget trying to build a little touchscreen, and I don't know if we're being recorded, they were all shit, okay? So what they actually did eventually is they all came together and they said, look, we've got the same problem from Daihatsu to Aston Martin. We've all got the same problem. We can't fix this on our own. We need an independent, impartial party to come and fix this for all of us. They collectively went to Apple and said, can you help us? They said, well, we've just made the iPad. Here's a chip, okay? So I don't know what car you've got. I've got a very basic car, but if I get in, plug my iPhone in, that screen becomes an iPad, right? And then, so Apple came along, impartially fixed it for everyone, and then they could all go back to competing with one another. So that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm impartial, independent. I've basically volunteered myself, take myself out of working for one music company to finally fix this problem, because it's no longer just, it needs to be done. It's actually a crisis now for artists and songwriters.
Okay, excellent. And my other panelists, do you concur with that view? Are you finding it both as a licensee and licensor, respectively, like a real pain?
I mean, the music business is broken on so many different levels. Licensing is just one of them, but registrations in the first place, royalty payments, distribution of royalties, everything, every aspect about getting paid in this industry is not fit for purpose. And I think, one of the reasons why I threw myself into the Web3 technology back in 2015 and then founded TokenTraxx in 2020 was to explore how using the new emerging techs, blockchain and crypto and AI, could improve that very situation. I've, as a music producer and a songwriter, I've seen huge problems. And I'm actually at the point now where I was having this conversation last night, where I don't really know where my royalties are coming from anymore. I'm no longer signed to a major label as a writer. And it's actually kind of confusing. There's nothing obvious about it. And I think to Tom's point, the complexities that are surrounding it are generated by an industry that makes a lot of money out of making things very complex. And I think we have to find ways of breaking away about that. And I know we've been saying it for 10, 20 years, but we have to start with the fundamentals, which is we have to encourage people not to sign contracts with companies that are going to not really look after them and are going to find ways of doing it. And that's why we're creating new systems that allow artists to just generate income directly with their fan bases. And that's what TokenTraxx does. We build out marketplaces, decentralized marketplaces for artist labels or publishing companies. I think if we can get to the bottom of that bit, then that sort of base bit, then the rest of it all kind of falls into place, really.
Excellent, thank you. And Michele, you finding problems or challenges in licensing music?
Well, we also have a Center for Creative Technology called TUMO, where we teach teenagers on how to create their own music, but where we also create content for them, and where we face these issues either when we accompany them when they make their first movie or their first game, and it's so. For me, it's stunning how a 13-year-old can be like, but this doesn't make sense. Like, how is this? Like, why nobody interferes, or the government doesn't interfere? And there, I'm as an adult, I'm like, well, you're right. But so yeah.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about this is, people have been asking the music industry to modernize. I mean, my sector of the music industry for many years, but there was never actually a need, because firstly, this is the way we've always done it. I mean, the licensing process has never changed since the 50s or 60s, since it was invented, with the exception of the invention of email, and I don't think we can really claim that one. But the conversation is now shifting, and it's shifting for a number of reasons. Firstly, so the reason it's not changed is, firstly, commercial music used to be the only shop in town, and brands used to make 1 or 2 adverts a year. Okay, so it was like we didn't need to change. Both those factors have changed now. Obviously, commercial music is no longer the only shop in town, but also those brands are not making 1 or 2 adverts a year. They're making 200 or 300 pieces of branded content a year. And if you think that our licensing process is 3 to 4 weeks long, it doesn't take too much of a calculation to work out that brands can't commence a 4-week administrative approval clearance process 300 times a year, right? So the conversation is now shifting, thankfully.
Well,
with AI, but how do we now make sure that there's not the same effect as you were saying about the cars on when we talk about transsectorial, because then you have the movie industry that will use and work, and they get funding to work on AI solutions to integrate music, to create music, but it's happening apart from the music industry. So how can we now bridge that? Because I think that's...
Well, I'll fix the movie industry next.
Thank you.
No, the missing piece of this whole puzzle, right, is data. It's very clear, right? So if you think as the music industry, there's basically a vast licensing industry as music leaves the record label or the music publisher and it goes out to the world of visual content. We have, as an industry, we have monetized the traditional primary sync process, which is 100% manual. We've monetized that. We've got thousands of people doing it, and that's 100% manual. At the other end of the spectrum, we've also monetized the 100% automated licensing solution, which is basically we give our whole catalog to TikTok, Peloton, Meta, Facebook, YouTube, and say, do what you want. That's 100% automated. In the middle, there is now a vast ocean of visual content, branded or otherwise, being created, which has not been monetized by the music industry, and it's not been monetized for 2 reasons. One, it is too vast for our traditional 100% manual licensing process. And on the other hand, it is too nuanced for a 100% automated solution. So in order to monetize that middle bit, we need a semi-automated licensing solution. And by semi-automated, I mean labels and publishers can turn on their entire catalog while still retaining full control over how each song is or isn't used. and that's data.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's blockchain.
Thank you. Right, I'm just going to ask a final question, and it kind of segues off our last one. The dreaded AI word was invoked, so I'm going to have to go into it. When I think about sort of where generative AI could be a threat or a risk to certain parts of music catalog exploitation, I think particularly it may affect mood and activity context, and also production music, i.e. like vast music libraries that are made for kind of incidental audiovisual content. Would you agree with that, or am I way off the mark? I'll start with Tom again, if that's all right.
So yes, I think AI poses a huge headwind to utility music, and by that I think you're right, production music, library music, soundscapes, whatever it may be. But as it stands, it also poses a big threat to commercial music as I see it, and that is because we as an industry have put so many barriers in between our artists and the people who want to use their music, and that's that 4-week manual process, right? So someone at a very big music company said to me a matter of weeks ago, Tom, I think the way things are going, in 3 years, sync will be fine if you're ABBA and Queen, but for everyone else it'll be over. Okay, so that's the doom mongering, right? Now, I don't want to see it as a threat. I actually want to see it as a big opportunity, because if you think when AI video creation truly kicks in, so OpenAI Sora is going to enable anyone to create a Hollywood quality movie by typing 5 sentences, right? That is going to, so there's already an ocean of visual content we can't manually license, but that ocean is going to be dwarfed by a tsunami of visual content that's coming down the pipes, okay? So that even OpenAI Sora, if anyone can do that in the world, that's theoretically 10,000 movies a day, right? Now, I'm not all saying they're all going to be Hollywood blockbusters, but I am saying they're all going to need music. Okay, So at the moment, there is no way for commercial music to be licensed at that sort of scale. But if we can modernize the underlying licensing infrastructure, we can actually monetize commercial music at that scale.
Got it.
While still retaining full control.
Yes, please do. And then I'm going to move on to questions.
I always like to use this as an example, right? Which is, we've had electric guitars for about 100 years. But there's only one Jimi Hendrix. There's only one Noel Gallagher. There's only one Jungi Melstrom, whatever his name is. Do you know what I'm saying? Human beings like other human beings. We admire each other. We don't necessarily care about the technologies we use. We care about each other. Usain Bolt can run at 40 miles an hour, and we're amazed at that. We all don't think twice about getting in a car and driving at 120 miles an hour or whatever, 100 miles an hour. So I'm kind of optimistic about this concept, which is that we love people that create stuff, beautiful things, Tom York, whatever, David Bowie. We don't really care about the mics they use or the technologies. Yeah, some of us, like me, nerdy, yeah. But most of the people out there in the street don't give a shit. So I think, to Tom's point, we have to think about allowing the world to make music, right? The world wants to make music. And back in the 70s, there were, I think, 72,000 singles released. There's 100,000 songs going up a day on Spotify. Democratizing of music is going to only increase with AI. And that's going to create a whole new concept around how we listen and engage in music. We need a system behind that protects human beings, not machines. We don't care about the fucking machines. We care about human beings. So we need the system behind all of this to do that. That's what people like me and Tom are looking to build. And probably are for you out there and all.
Thanks. Michele, a final point, and then I'm going to move on to questions.
I would like to add our responsibility as humans to really see AI as a tool, but also to see the limits of AI, because I think that if you try, we were missioned we wanted, our communication agency wanted us to use AI for our visual for the festival this year. And our only request was, because it's usually like a 3D model of a person or something, and for my thing is not a woman and not in a posture that you communication people think is the future, which is somehow very, very, very weird. But so the AI, even if you type in non-binary person, the first thing that will come out is a blonde woman with big boobs and blue eyes. It's crazy. Then you add African, non-African American, whatever. You have to be so specific. So the bias of AI. And so it's the same when you write content. So for example, because we train artists to use AI as a writing tool also. And so the AI is fed with all the history, and so it will recognize patterns. So right, genocide is an option because this repeats itself. So cool. So I will suggest to you this is an option for your scenario, right? Because it doesn't have an emotional memory and it doesn't know, okay, this is bad. And this is also something that with the algorithms, for example, in social media, telling people always only that what they like and what they know and what they are recomforted in their thing, in their feeling of, okay, no, racism is cool. So the algorithm will tell them and provide them with content, all this. And I think when it comes to creation of music, sorry, I'm a bit getting away, but when it comes to using AI as a tool, and when it will amplify the creation of content, the difference will be the human emotion. And so that's what we have to hold on to.
Wonderful. Well, a great way to finish our first set of discussions and questions. I'd like to just open it to the floor. Does anyone have any questions for the panel?
You were talking about the issue of car brands with the screen. So you think the solution for catalog owners, a little one, would be to mutualize their goal for the clearance to do something easier for the brands to get the music in the. Do you think it's going to be that solution?
The issue at the moment is that industry standard metadata is basically gives you the songwriter, the label, the album, the release date, the other songwriters, etc. Right? That is not detailed enough for a nuanced, semi-automated industry-wide infrastructure. So the missing piece of the puzzle is data, and by data I mean sync rights data. So that is, for example, is this song available for meat advertising? Yes, no, maybe. Is this song available for alcohol advertising? Yes, no, maybe. Is this song available for violent content? Yes, no, maybe, right? That fundamental music rights information has never been standardized by the industry, and what that means is that every label and publisher handles, manages, stores that information in completely different formats, in completely different ways, in completely different solutions. And that is why, if anyone in the world wants to use one of our songs once, they have to call up 6 companies and begin a 4-week negotiation, okay? So what we're doing, we are standardizing that data format so that every label and publisher stores, manages, accesses, and then distributes that information in exactly the same format.
You're working on it.
Yeah.
I think this is really, this is the fundamental thing is we want to encourage people to use human-made music, whether you're using AI to make that music or not. It doesn't matter. It's human-made music. We want to encourage people to do that. The current system, as Tom says, is out of date. It's antiquated because it's built for scenarios that are way, we've surpassed all those. So the question becomes, how do we create these, how can we make it easier for people to use it? Otherwise, big companies will just go, oh, fuck it, let's just use AI, and it'll be substandard. And what'll happen is the quality will go down because people will go, yeah, that's fine. We'll just use that. And it won't be as good as if human beings made it, because it never will be. It never will be, because you can't equal the tangent kind of abstract thinking that goes on in a human mind. I'm sorry, you just can't. I get 4 people in a room to write a song. There's 5 of us in a room. We've all got different experiences, all got different needs, all got different loves. All of those experiences and everything, all of that comes together to splurge out a song. I'm sorry, but you know, even AI is way, way, way off being able to do that.
Okay, guys, I just want to make sure that everyone who wants to ask a question can ask one. So I'm just going to pass on.
Right. So there are 2 things that I hope to see in my lifetime. One is the one you just said, a sort of sync blanket license where you can use whatever you want for your stuff online. The other one is world peace, but we'll come to that on a different conference. So for sync blanket licensing...
One's much easier than the other, by the way.
Well, I'm not entirely sure. You said that data is the biggest problem for sync blanket licensing, and that's certainly true insofar as it's a huge problem. But the other one is intention and willingness. Now, speaking as a US and UK lawyer, I know that there's one huge difference between the 2 countries in that Europe has quite a lot of sync blanket licensing. The US doesn't have any. So, for instance, in the UK, BBC Television makes a program. They want to pull a song into the program. They can think of any song they want. Don't have to ask anybody. Don't have to seek approval. Just put it in the program. And it allows wonderful things like... I suppose my favorite example was Sherlock, the BBC program that had Moriarty facing Sherlock, and they were about to kill each other, and suddenly Moriarty's phone went off, and it was Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. And it was a great joke. It was a great joke. In the US, if you tried to make that program, that joke would be too expensive. It would be, they just can't do it because you'd have to seek out use of that song for 5 seconds. It was only 5 seconds on screen, but you'd have to seek it out and pay for it, and there would be a negotiation. And not only is it the 3 weeks and 400 emails, but it's a lot of money, and there are budgets that are shrinking on all these programs. So we treasure the sync blanket license, and other countries in Europe also treasure their sync blanket license for public broadcasters because we can trust them. That's the concept, right? It's not just for anybody, but public broadcasters like the BBC can trust. We can trust that they won't abuse our music, so they just get used all the time and we get money for it. That's the world we want to see. Every time I go back to LA, though, they all say, oh, that sync blanket license in Europe is the worst thing that's ever happened. How can they just steal our music without asking for permission? We hate it. It's got to stop. And now, if there's no visual involved, if it's only an audio license, then we already have blanket licensing, right? You can cover anybody's song you want. You don't have to ask permission. You just record the song, boom, off you go. And in America, they have gone farther than Europe with the Mechanical Licensing Collective. Yet, if there's a visual involved, it's off the table. You can't do it. So my concern is, yes, the data, but also the idea that creators want to set their own value of music, and it's very, very difficult to enter a market where there is a menu that says, here are all the songs and here are the prices that you can get my music for. That's just not how publishers and labels operate, is it? We all know. They right? Because the cost of sync licensing a song is always the same no matter what you do. It's always, how much have you got? Right? That's always the price. So in order to put something on a rate card and say this song is cheaper than that one, I think this is the biggest problem with it. How do we change people's mindsets to move to a world? Now, I think you were mentioning for a moment that there are young people who don't understand this concept of why the hell are you making it so hard? But how do we get some of that mindset into the corporations who say, no, we can't make this easier. We have to make it hard in order to maximize our money.
Great question. Great question. So on the blanket licenses with the major broadcasters, not liking those agreements is not limited to US publishers and labels. I think the reason some people don't like those blanket agreements is because they feel they don't have any control. Okay, so it's just, oh, the Performing Rights Society have turned on our catalogue and now we don't have any control, right? So that is the missing piece. It's enabling a system where this whole global marketplace can be turned on at scale, while crucially giving labels and publishers full control over how each song is or isn't used, okay? If you imagine the 4-week life cycle of a sync opportunity, right? Someone finds the song here, says, oh, I think I'd want to use it. Now, I actually think 98 times out of 100 they're giving up there. They realise it's commercial music. They're like, life's too short. I'm just going to use a sound alike, right? But say they say that 2% is like, okay, I'm going to embark on the 4-week process. They find the song here, and then they embark on a 4-week process to get a yes, no, or maybe. Okay. What we're doing is we are moving the yes, no, maybe from the end of the process to the start of the process. So the artist chooses their settings. I'm a vegan, I will never do a meat advert. I'm a climate change campaigner, I will never do a fossil fuels advert. Everything else is fine. And, advertising, I need approval. Okay, so it's putting power back in the hands of the labels and publishers, and that has been a major stumbling block to these blanket agreements, because mostly in America, but also elsewhere, they're like, we don't have any control, we don't like it. So that's the challenge. That's the problem with it. It's like people are just turning on catalogues, but labels and publishers feel like they don't have control.
Presumably, Tom, you could put a flag in that says, I'm always going to negotiate on this bit of repertoire. So you can say, maybe requires a discussion and not set a rate card.
You have full control over choosing your settings. You can turn the whole catalogue on, or you can say, I want approval on that, that's pre-denied, that's pre-approved, come to me, whatever, right?
So on to world peace then.
Yeah, exactly, right. But just on that point, right, so say like the traditional primary sync market, which is 100%, we've already monetized that. We've got like 5,000 people doing it around the world every day, right? And that is good as gold. That is like, let me speak to the artist, let's negotiate a deal, how much have you got? Let me get the artist on the phone with the direct. That's great. That's traditional. That's the fun, high profile, high value stuff we all got into this industry. That's monetized, okay? Disney is never going to want to put in a credit card for a £200,000 trailer, all right? That's monetized. This is for the ocean of visual content that we can't currently monetize with that 4-week manual process. So, like, of course, we're always going to need negotiators thrashing out deals, but this is for the unmonetized ocean of content.
TokenTraxx are building we're partnering with a company called Slate, which are doing the same thing, but with brand positioning. So brand positioning for films is a real lucrative concept. You've got obviously the big $1 million budgets films that get Audi in or Apple or whatever, but the smaller budget films can't afford to do that. They can't afford to do the negotiation, do that. Again, utilizing a simpler system allows an ocean of content to have brands attached to it. So they might only come in and pay a couple of $100 or something to have their beer in one of the scenes or whatever. But that couple of $100 all goes into that profit for the film. So again, it's not just sync licensing. There are a number of different things that are being affected by this. Again, I'll say it again. By doing it on chain, makes it easier, quicker, cheaper, automated.
Excellent. That was a great question, great answer, and great discussion. Any other questions? I think everyone's probably quite hungry. I think it's lunch now. No? Pas encore? Okay, in a quarter of an hour, we've got... you have one question? Okay, let's have a last question, and then we'll take a break. This is the hottest room in Belgium.
It's a question for Michele. It's about the first part of the discussion about immersive song and sort of stuff. It needs gear, special gear, like you don't have the proper sound if you don't have it. So like 3D TV and that sort of stuff never works because the glasses and all the stuff, it's a too big barrier to get into the tech. So do you think for immersive sound that gear is going to be the same barrier?
I'm very optimistic, so I'm saying no, but I don't think I think that in this case you have the support of companies like Apple or others who are working on their products, and I think they have well identified the potential of the sound experience that they can provide, and I think...
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I don't work for Amazon anymore, so I'm not plugging there. But the Echo Studio in the UK is like £170, and plays back Dolby Atmos. If you have two, it's actually a really, really good sort of playback experience. So clearly, the home technology is getting cheaper and cheaper. You know, sound bars. People are investing more and more in like enhanced sort of sonic experience to go with their big TVs, etc. at home, and broadcasters are broadcasting more of that stuff with it. As we said, streaming services are doing it. So I think that will happen. But I think what's interesting, what you said, which I agree with, is the concept of wearing something on your face. It just has never worked, right? With 3D visual, like that's been going since the 40s or 50s. We've been trying to break, 3D film, and every time it comes out. So I don't know what needs to happen to kind of like drive sort of further consumer adoption of that.
You're wearing something on your face.
I know, but I can see through it, and you can see my eyes.
Well, there you go.
You know.
That's what it needs.
Well, that's what they're trying with the Apple Vision Pro, which is a bit scary. But the experience is really, really, really nice. Of course, I have at my office. We have all kinds of headsets, so I'm used to it now. But indeed, I think there is a lot of potential, and also with new.
I think it just changes. It's about technology advancing. I remember the first couple of times I saw somebody walking down the street just talking to themselves. They weren't. They were talking on a headset. And it was like, and now it's commonplace. Now it's commonplace that everybody just stares at their phone and walks around. And we just have worked out this incredible ability to walk around each other without actually seeing who we are. All of this is what technology does. The whole concept of pinching things and scrolling and all that kind of stuff. When that, it's like, whoa, okay. Now we take it for granted.
And as you say, there's it's new art forms that are being created, and there's new kinds of content that you cannot, that you shouldn't compare, because if you compare it, I'm here also for a second event that is called Futura Cinema, which is the future of cinema. So just operating, how do you operate a cinema, and how do you bring people back? But the experiences are not the same, so you shouldn't brand it as such.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you to my panelists, Michele, Tom, and Tommy. Thanks for the great questions, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good one.
Well, thank you.